That morning last summer, I found a letter tucked inside my daughter's old sketchbook, its edges frayed like the promises I'd made to her. The kitchen was quiet, save for the faint drip of a leaky faucet and the sunlight glinting off a cracked coffee mug, a relic from happier days when this house still felt like a home. I thought it was just another ordinary moment, but the words in that letter hit me like a freight train, unraveling everything I believed about my kids, about myself, about the life we'd stitched together. I'm a father. Always have been, even when I wasn't sure I was any good at it. I raised 2 kids, Emma, with her wild curls and dreams of painting the world, and Jack, who'd cling to my hand like I was his whole universe. For years, I wore fatherhood like armor, even when it chafed, thinking I was giving them everything: love, stability, a chance to be better than I ever was. But that letter, it exposed lies I didn't even know I'd been living, lies that grew in the shadows of bedtime stories and hurried goodnights. There's an ache in my chest that won't quit, like I've been carrying a secret I didn't know I owned. Was I too busy fixing the world to see what was breaking in my own home? I keep seeing Emma's crayons scattered on the floor, Jack's shy grin when I'd promised to be at his games. But now I'm left asking, what did they see when they looked at me? And why did it take a single piece of paper to show me I was the last to know? This isn't just my story. It's about the truths we bury to keep our families whole, and the wreckage when they surface. It's about pain that cuts deep, but also the stubborn hope that there's still time to fix what's broken. That letter was just the beginning, and what comes next might destroy me or save us all. If this hits you where it hurts, hit that like button. Share your own story in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Subscribe and ring the bell because this journey's just starting, and I want you with me every step of the way. Last summer, the attic smelled of mildew and regret, a tomb for things we'd rather forget. I was rooting through boxes, half drunk on nostalgia, when I found Emma's sketchbook, buried under a pile of broken toys and faded dreams. Its cover was a ghost of itself, her name scratched in red crayon and defiant as ever. I flipped it open, expecting her wildflower doodles, those bursts of colour from a kid who saw the world brighter than I ever could. Instead, a letter slipped out, its edges frayed like the edges of my nerves, worn thin by years of pretending everything was fine. The first line hit me like a fist to the gut. "Dad, you're living a lie." My knees gave out, and I sank onto the creaking floorboards, dust swirling in the slanted light like tiny accusations. Emma's handwriting was jagged, furious, not the neat loops she used to practice for hours. Each word was a blade, slicing through the fragile skin of memory. I'd always thought I knew my kids, Emma with her wild curls, Jack with his shy grin, but this letter hinted at a secret, something dark and festering, about me, about them, about the family I'd stitched together with good intentions and bad choices. My hand shook as I clutched the paper, the attic closing in, its air thick with the weight of truths I wasn't ready to face. I saw Emma at 10, sprawled under the oak tree out back, sketching wildflowers with a focus that shut out the world. Her laughter used to fill this house, bright and untainted. Was that happiness a lie too? The question clawed at me, sharp and relentless. I'd spent years convincing myself I was a good father, working late, sure, but for them, for a better life. Now, that letter mocked me, whispering that I'd missed something vital, something that had been rotting in plain sight. I stuffed it in my pocket, my fingers trembling, afraid to read more but unable to let it go. It was a grenade, and I was too weak to throw it. Downstairs, the kitchen was a mausoleum, the faucet's drip a cruel metronome counting out my failures. Each drop echoed in the empty house, a reminder of what I'd lost. Emma, now 22 and 1,000 miles away, Jack, 18 and a stranger who hadn't come home since graduation. The cracked mug on the counter, Emma's favourite, stared at me like an old friend who knew too much. I poured a coffee, but it tasted like ash. The letter burned in my pocket, its words a pulse I couldn't ignore. What did Emma know that I didn't? What had I done or failed to do that turned my daughter's love into this jagged, angry scrawl? I stood there, the house too quiet, the silence screaming louder than any truth. I wanted to run, to burn the letter, to pretend I'd never seen it. But I couldn't. It was in me now, a splinter under my skin, demanding I face whatever came next. I didn't know then that this was the start of unraveling everything, my kids, my marriage, myself. All I knew was that letter, and the way it made my heart stutter, like it was trying to warn me of the storm I'd already walked into. The letter lived in my pocket for days, a tumour I couldn't cut out. It burned against my thigh, a constant reminder of Emma's words. "Dad, you're living a lie." The kitchen faucet kept dripping, each plink a jab at my cowardice. I couldn't face the rest of her letter, not yet, but I couldn't shake the ghosts it woke. Emma's paint-splattered hands, Jack's shy grin, moments I'd sworn were real. Now they felt like props in a play I didn't know I was starring in. The house was too big, too empty, a shell of the life I'd built for my kids, or so I told myself. I tore through photo albums, desperate for clues, the kind of evidence you hunt for when your world starts cracking. One picture stopped me cold. Emma at 12, her smile tight, her eyes like windows to a room I'd never entered. Had I missed it even then? The albums were a museum of lies, each snapshot a story I'd told myself, happy family, devoted dad. But the truth was in the margins, my absence, the late nights I spent chasing promotions, thinking money could buy them a future. Every smile in those photos felt like a betrayal now, a mask hiding whatever Emma's letter was screaming. Nights were worse. I lay awake, the ceiling a blank canvas for regret. I'd replay those years, dinners I missed, birthdays I half-arsed, promises I broke because work was crazy. I thought I was building something for them, but what if I just built a wall? I dialed Emma's number, her voicemail a cold slap. "Leave a message, I'll get back to you." She was 22 now, across the country, her life a mystery. Jack was closer, 18, but his silence was louder. He hadn't come home since graduation, his room a shrine to a kid I didn't know, posters of bands I'd never heard, a life I'd missed. I poured a whiskey, hoping it'd dull the ache, but it only sharpened the question. What did I miss? The letter was a weight, a dare I wasn't ready to take. I pulled it out, unfolded it, then shoved it back, my hands unsteady. A memory hit like a brick. Jack, maybe 8, asking why I worked so much. I'd laughed, ruffled his hair, said, "So you can have everything." He'd looked away, his grin fading. Was that the moment? The first lie? I didn't know, but it gnawed at me, a splinter I couldn't dig out. The kitchen was my prison now. The cracked mug, Emma's favourite, watching me like a judge. I traced its chip, remembering her small hands wrapping around it, her laughter filling this room. Now it was just me and the faucet's relentless drip, each drop a countdown to whatever truth Emma had scrawled. I wanted to call her again, to beg for answers, but what would I say? "Sorry I failed you, tell me how." The letter was my only clue, and I was too scared to read it fully, but it was alive now, a pulse in my pocket demanding I face the ghosts I'd made. The house creaked, and I wondered if it was mocking me too, or just waiting for me to break. I finally cracked open Emma's letter at the kitchen table, the cracked mug my only witness. Her words were a guillotine, sharp and merciless, cutting through the lies I'd told myself about being a good dad. She wrote of secrets she and Jack kept, fed by their mother's stories, Claire, my ex, spinning tales that painted me as the villain. The faucet dripped, a slow torture, as I read how she'd convinced them I chose work over love, that I'd abandoned them for ambition. Emma's handwriting trembled. "We were kids, Dad, we believed her." My hand shook, the letter crinkling under my grip. Claire's bitter silences after our divorce flashed back, her sharp tongue, her eyes like daggers reds when I'd pick up the kids. I'd thought it was just her anger, her way of coping, but this was poison seeping into my kids' minds, turning me into a stranger. I saw Emma at 8, her curls bouncing as we walked through the zoo, Jack clinging to my hand. That day, I'd felt like a hero. Now I wondered if Claire's lies had already started, rewriting that memory for them. The kitchen felt smaller, the air thick with betrayal. I dug out a photo from that zoo trip, Jack's grin wide, Emma's eyes bright. But now I saw the edges, my briefcase in the car, my phone buzzing with work calls. Had I been absent even then? Emma's words burned. "You weren't there." I wanted to scream that I was, that I'd tried, but the truth was a splinter in my throat. I'd worked late, missed games, thought I was building a future. Instead, I'd built a myth Claire exploited. I stared at the mug. its chip a scar from a fight I couldn't remember. Claire's lies weren't just about me, they were about control, about making sense of our wreckage. But why? What did she gain by turning my kids against me? The letter didn't say, but its weight promised more, a deeper cut waiting. I wanted to call Emma, to beg her to explain, but her voicemail was a wall I couldn't climb. Jack was closer, but his silence was its own kind of lie. I was alone, drowning in a truth I hadn't seen coming. The faucet's drip was relentless, each drop a pulse of guilt. How do you rebuild a family when the foundation's rotten? I thought of Claire's voice, smooth as glass, telling them I didn't care. I thought of Emma believing it, her trust in me eroding with every bedtime story. The letter was a confession, a plea, a weapon. I folded it, my hands unsteady, and shoved it back in my pocket. The truth was out, but it wasn't enough. There was more, and I was terrified of what it might cost me to find it. Have you ever learned someone you loved believed a lie about you? Share below. I'm lost, and I need to know I'm not alone. I sat there, the kitchen dark, the mug accusing. The letter was a map to a place I didn't want to go, but I was already walking. Claire's stories had stolen my kids, and I'd let them. Now I had to face what else she'd hidden, what else I'd missed. The drip kept counting, and I knew I couldn't stop now. I drove to Claire's house, the letter a crumpled fist in my pocket, a rage-alive wire in my veins. Her place was an hour away, a suburban dream with a white picket fence and roses that screamed lies. I hadn't seen her in years, but the anger didn't care. It was fresh, raw, like she'd just fed my kids another poison story. The road hummed under my tyres, and I rehearsed what I'd say, each word sharp enough to cut, but deep down I knew Claire. She'd twist this, make me the bad guy again. She opened the door, her face older but still sharp, like a blade dulled by time but not harmless. "You're late," she said, her voice cool, like we were old friends swapping gossip. I wanted to laugh, but the letter burned, and I shoved it at her, demanding why she'd lied to Emma and Jack. She didn't flinch, just sighed, heavy and practiced, like she'd been waiting for this fight. "I protected them," she said, her eyes meeting mine with a flicker of something, guilt maybe, or just another mask. She admitted she'd spun stories about my absence, said it was to make sense of our divorce, to give them a reason for the chaos. I stood in her perfect living room surrounded by photos of her new life, none of us, none of me. My voice shook as I asked why she'd painted me as a failure, a man who didn't love his kids. Her answer was a shrug, a half-truth about shielding them from my obsession with work. But her eyes betrayed her, darting to the floor, and I knew there was more. Claire was a master at hiding, at crafting stories that fit her narrative. I wanted to scream, to shake her until the truth fell out. But that flicker of regret stopped me. Was she sorry, or was this just another act? Driving home, the road was a blur, my anger dissolving into something hollow, like I'd lost a piece of myself in her house. The letter wasn't the whole story. It was a door to something uglier, something Claire wasn't telling. I saw Emma's face in my mind, her curls wild, her trust in me broken by Claire's words. I saw Jack, his grin fading with every missed game. Had I been so blind that I let her rewrite our family? The steering wheel was slicker under my palms, my knuckles white. I'd thought I knew Claire, but this woman, the one who'd poisoned my kids against me, was a stranger. The kitchen was dark when I got home, the faucet's drip a cruel echo. The mug sat there, chipped and accusing, a relic of a life I'd thought was mine. I pulled out the letter, its creases deep, and wondered what else Claire had buried. Her sigh, her flicker of guilt, they weren't enough. There was a bigger lie, a deeper cut, and I was starting to feel it in my bones. I poured a whiskey, the burn no match for the ache in my chest. The letter was a map, but to where? To my kids, to Claire's secrets, or to the man I'd failed to be? I didn't know, but I was already too far in to turn back. I found Jack in a dingy apartment, the air thick with stale beer and the kind of despair that clings to the walls. He was taller now, his boyish grin gone, replaced by a stare that cut through me like I was a stranger. The letter was a weight in my pocket, Emma's words screaming for answers, but Jack was my only shot at filling the gaps. The room was a mess, empty cans, a sagging couch, like he'd been running from something too. I stood there, my throat tight, needing him to talk to make sense of the lies that had fractured us. He flicked a lighter, the flame dancing in his eyes, and dodged my questions like a boxer. "Why now, Dad? It's too late. His voice was low, bitter, like he'd been chewing on resentment for years. I mentioned Emma's letter, and his jaw tightened, his fingers stilling on the lighter. "Claire wasn't wrong, you were never there," he said, and the words landed like a slap. I wanted to argue, to say I'd worked for him, for Emma, but the truth was a splinter I couldn't pull out. I'd missed too much and he knew it. I pressed harder, asking what else he knew, what Emma's letter didn't say. His face darkened, and he muttered, "There's stuff you don't get." It was a door slamming shut, but I saw the scar on his knuckles, fresh and raw, like he'd been fighting something or someone. What was he hiding? I thought of Claire's lies, how they'd twisted his view of me, but this was different. Heavier. Jack was carrying something, and it wasn't just his mother's stories. I wanted to grab him, shake the truth out, but his eyes held me back, cold and guarded. Leaving, I felt like a ghost in my own son's life, the letter heavier than ever. The drive home was a blur, my mind stuck on that scar on his words. "You were never there." I thought I was building a future, but I'd built a wall instead. Back in the kitchen, the faucet's drip was a cruel pulse, and I found Jack's old drawing in a drawer. A stick-figure family, me towering over them, my face a blank oval. It hit me like a brick. That's how he saw me, a shadow, not a father. Had I been gone so long I'd erased myself? The mug sat on the counter, chipped and accusing, Emma's favourite, now a relic of my failures. I poured a whiskey, but it didn't dull the ache. Jack's secret was a lock I couldn't pick, and Emma's letter was only half the key. I wanted to call him, to beg for answers, but what could I say? "Tell me how I failed you." The house was too quiet, the silence a scream I couldn't ignore. What do you do when your own child shuts you out? Drop your thoughts. I'm barely holding on. I stood there, the letter burning, knowing Jack's truth was tied to Emma's, and I was terrified of what it would cost to uncover it. The drip kept counting, and I was running out of time to make things right. Emma's voice was a ghost on the phone, thin and wary, but she agreed to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral ground where neither of us could hide. Seeing her, curls tamed, eyes shadowed like storm clouds, tore something open in me. She was 22, a woman now, but I saw the girl who'd painted wildflowers, her laughter a light I'd failed to keep burning. The letter was in my pocket, its weight a constant ache, and I needed to know what she'd carried alone, what Claire's lies had buried. She gripped her coffee, knuckles white, and whispered, "The letter wasn't meant to hurt you." Her voice cracked, and I saw the girl who'd trusted me once, now a stranger with walls I couldn't scale. She spoke of Claire's stories, how they had painted me as a man who didn't care, but then her words shifted, heavier. There was a secret, she said, something from high school, something Claire buried to protect her. My stomach churned as she hinted at a coach, his unwanted attention, her fear swallowed by her shame. The coffee shop blurred, the air too thick to breathe. I saw Emma at 15, her smile fading, her sketches turning dark. I'd been too busy, too blind to notice. She described the coach's lingering looks, his hand brushing her arm, her panic silenced by Claire's insistence that it was nothing. Emma had carried it alone, thinking I wouldn't care, that I was too far gone in my own world. My throat burned, guilt and knife twisting deeper. I reached for her hand, but she flinched, her trust fractured, and I felt like I was falling, the ground gone beneath me. The shop's hum faded, leaving just her words and the ache in my chest. I wanted to scream, to find that coach, to tear apart the years I'd lost to ignorance. But Emma's eyes held me, tired and raw, asking a question she didn't voice. Why didn't you see me? I had no answer, just the letter's weight and the truth it had unleashed. Claire's lies were one thing, but this was a betrayal I'd enabled by not being there. The mug flashed in my mind, chipped and accusing, a relic of a family I'd failed. Walking away, her pain clung to me, a weight heavier than the letter. The street was too bright, the world too normal for the storm inside me. I saw Jack's scar, his guarded stare, and wondered if he knew too, if he had carried this with Emma. The letter was a map, but it led to places I wasn't ready to go. I wanted to call Claire to demand why she'd silenced Emma. But what good would it do? The truth was out, and it was uglier than I'd feared. I was complicit, a father who'd missed the signs, and the guilt was a pulse I couldn't stop. The kitchen was dark when I got home, the faucet's drip a cruel echo. I pulled out the letter, its creases deep, and saw Emma's face, her trust broken. I'd failed her, not just with absence, but by letting Claire bury her pain. The truth was a blade, and I was bleeding. I needed to know more, to find Jack, to face Claire again. The drip kept counting, and I knew the next step would cost me everything I had left. I turned into a ghost hunter, chasing shadows in my own life. The letter sat on my desk, a taunting map, while I scoured old emails, Claire's abandoned social media, a dusty box of her things in the garage. Emma's pain was a splinter I couldn't pull out, and I needed answers. About her, about Jack, about the lies that had festered under my nose. The kitchen faucet dripped, a relentless pulse, and the cracked mug watched me, a silent judge of my failures as a father. A photo stopped me cold. Emma at 15, her smile a lie, her eyes hollow as a boarded-up house. I'd been too busy to notice, too buried in work to see her light dim. Something broke her that year, and I was starting to see it wasn't just Claire's stories. I found Claire's old journal in the garage, its pages brittle, her handwriting tight. One entry dated that same year mentioned a mistake she regretted. Tied to Emma's school, the word sat there heavy, like a stone dropped in my gut. What had she done or failed to do? I called a teacher friend, someone who'd known Emma back then. Her voice was hesitant, like she was stepping around broken glass. She mentioned rumours about a coach, a creep who'd left the school under a cloud. My blood ran cold, picturing Emma small and scared, her trust shattered while I was signing contracts in another city. Claire's journal, the teacher's words, they were pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but I couldn't stop. Had Claire hidden this to protect Emma, or to save herself from the shame? The kitchen was a cage now, the faucet's drip a countdown to the truth. I saw Emma's face, her flinch when I reached for her, and Jack's scar, his guarded stare. Did he know? Had he carried this too? The letter hinted at more, its creases deep from my endless unfolding. I wanted to scream, to tear apart the years I'd lost to blindness. Claire's mistake wasn't just a lie about me, it was a cover-up, a betrayal that let Emma's pain fester, and I'd been too absent to see it. I sat in the dark, the mug gleaming like a beacon of my failures. The letter was beside me, its words a pulse I couldn't ignore. I thought of Jack's drawing, my face blank, and wondered if I'd ever been real to them. The teacher's voice echoed, "He left, but people talked." The coach was gone, but his shadow lingered, and Claire had let it. My guilt was a knife, twisting deeper. Was I complicit, not just in absence, but in letting this happen? The thought was a weight I couldn't carry, but I had to. The house creaked, like it was laughing at my unraveling. I needed to face Claire again, to demand the whole truth, but the letter warned me it wouldn't be enough. Emma's pain, Jack's silence, they were tied to something bigger, something I'd missed for years. The faucet dripped, each drop a reminder of time I couldn't get back. I was a detective now, but the crime was mine, and the evidence was everywhere. In Emma's eyes, Jack's scar, the mug's chip. The truth was taking shape, and it was uglier than I'd ever imagined. I had to keep going, even if it broke me. I went back to Claire, her garden a lie of perfect roses, their red too bright against the grey of my rage. The letter was a blade in my pocket, Emma's pain a weight I couldn't shake. I needed the truth, about the coach, about her sounds, about the lies that had stolen my kids. She was pruning, her hand steady, like the world hadn't just cracked open. I demanded answers, my voice raw, and for the first time I saw her falter, the shears trembling in her grip. Her face crumpled and she whispered, "I thought I was saving her." The words were a punch, soft but brutal. She admitted Emma had come to her at 15, scared, telling her about the coach, his lingering looks, his hand on her arm. Claire hushed it, thinking silence would spare Emma the shame, the whispers of a small town. She'd told herself it was protection, not cowardice. I stood there, the roses blurring, picturing Emma alone, her fear buried while I was off chasing deals, oblivious. My guilt was a fire burning through me. Claire's voice broke, but I didn't trust her tears. Was this regret or another performance? She'd lied about me for years, turned my kids against me, and now this, a secret she'd kept to save face, not Emma. I saw my daughters flinch, her shadowed eyes, and wanted to scream. How could Claire think silence was mercy? I'd failed Emma by being gone, but Claire had failed her by staying and saying nothing. The letter had hinted at this, but hearing it was a knife twisting deeper. She begged me not to tell Emma I knew, her voice desperate, like she was still in control, wanted to shake her, to demand why she'd let my daughter carry that pain alone. But her eyes, wet and wide, held something, fear maybe, or a truth she hadn't shared. Was there more? The garden felt too small, the air too thick, like the roses were choking me. I left, my heart pounding and knowing the next step would shatter what little we had left. Emma deserved the truth, but would it break her again? The drive home was a haze, the letter heavy, Claire's confession heavier. The kitchen was dark, the faucets drip a cruel pulse. The mug sat there, chipped and accusing, a relic of a family I'd lost to my own blindness and Claire's lies. I poured a whiskey, but it didn't dull the ache. I saw Jack's scar, his guarded stare, and wondered if he'd known about the coach too. Had he carried it with Emma, another secret I'd missed? The letter was a map, but it led to a place I wasn't ready for, a place where I'd failed them all. I stood in the silence, the house creaking like it was mocking me. Claire's confession was a crack in the foundation, but it wasn't the whole truth. There was more, and I was terrified of what it would cost to find it. The faucet dripped, each drop a reminder of time I couldn't reclaim. I had to face Emma, to tell her I knew, but the weight of her pain, of my guilt, was crushing me. The letter was a blade, and I was bleeding, but I couldn't stop now. The truth was close, and it was going to hurt. I met Emma at our old park, where she used to sketch under the oaks, their branches heavy with memory. The letter was in my pocket, its weight lighter now, but my heart was a stone. I had to tell her I knew, about the coach, about Claire's silence. Her face paled when I spoke, but she didn't run. Her eyes locked on mine, searching for something I wasn't sure I could give. The air was thick with autumn, leaves crunching underfoot, and I felt like we were standing on the edge of something fragile. She cried, not for the trauma, but for the years she thought I didn't care. Her tears were a knife, cutting through the lies Claire had fed her, the lies I'd let grow by being gone. I confessed my failures, missing her pain, chasing work, letting Claire's storiness take root. My voice cracked, raw and honest, and for the first time I saw her soften, her walls crumbling just enough to let me in. We sat on a bench, the silence between us softer now, like a bruise starting to fade. Jack showed up, hesitant, his hands shoved in his pockets, his scar glinting in the fading light. He'd overheard my call to Emma, and something in him broke free. He admitted he'd known about the coach, had seen Emma's fear but stayed silent, thinking it was her secret to keep. His voice was low, heavy with guilt, and I saw the boy who'd clung to my hand, now a man carrying his own scars. The park felt smaller, the oaks closing in, but we were together, broken but real. We talked, haltingly at first, about the years we'd lost, the lies we'd believed. Emma spoke of her shame, how Claire's silence made her feel small, invisible. Jack confessed his anger, how he'd punched walls to feel something other than helpless. I listened, really listened, for the first time in years. My guilt was a pulse, steady and sharp, but there was something else, hope, faint but alive. We weren't fixed, but we were here, and that was enough for now. The sun dipped low, painting the park gold, and I saw Emma's sketchbook in my mind, her wild flowers bright again. Jack's grin flickered, not the shy one I remembered, but something new, tentative. We sat there, 3 broken pieces trying to fit together. The letter had led us here, to this moment, and I realized it wasn't just pain, it was a chance to start over. I didn't know if we'd make it, but I wanted to try, to be the father they deserved. The kitchen was waiting when I got home, the faucet's drip quieter now, like it was giving me a break. The mug sat there, chipped but whole, a reminder of what we'd survived. I pulled out the letter, its creases soft from handling, and set it aside. It wasn't the end, but it was a beginning. Emma's tears, Jack's confession, they were ours now, shared and real. The park had held us, fragile but together, and I clung to that. The truth had cut us open, but it was stitching us back slowly, painfully. I wasn't ready to let go, not now, not ever. The letter rests in a drawer now, not a weight but a scar, proof we survived the truth. The kitchen is quieter, the faucet fixed, but the cracked mug stays, Emma's favourite, a relic of a family we're rebuilding. Emma's painting again, her canvases bursting with colour, wildflowers blooming like they used to. Jack texts me, his words less sharp, his grin creeping back in photos he sends. Me? I'm learning to listen, to be present, to be the father I wasn't. The letter started this, and I'm not running anymore. I apologise to them, not just for the lies I didn't see, but for the man I'd been, absent, blind, chasing a life I thought they needed. Emma hugged me, her arms tentative but warm, and Jack nodded, his scar catching the light. We met Claire, not as enemies, but as two people who'd failed and wanted better. She cried, her roses forgotten, and admitted her silence about the coach was fear, not protection. I didn't forgive her, not fully, but I saw her, broken like me, trying to claw her way back. Therapy's a beast peeling back layers of guilt I'd buried for years. It's hard, like digging through concrete, but it's as teaching me to hear Emma's silences, Jack's anger. I see them now, Emma's curls wild again, Jack's grin less guarded. We're not whole, maybe never will be, but we're here, talking, trying. Emma gave me a new sketch, us, faces clear, standing close under a bright sun, Jack added with a marker. It's taped to my fridge, next to the mug, a map of where we're going. The house doesn't creak as much, or maybe I'm not listening for its judgment anymore. I think of the park, that fragile moment when we sat together, broken but real. The letter was a blade, but it cut away the lies. Claire's, mine, ours. I see Jack's scar, Emma's shadowed eyes, and know they're healing slowly, like me. The truth hurt, but it's ours now, shared and raw. I'm not the father I wanted to be, but I'm here, and that's something I'll fight for. I walk past the oak tree out back where Emma used to sketch and feel her light again, faint but growing. Jack called yesterday, just to talk, and I held onto his voice like a lifeline. Claire's trying too, her calls less guarded, her apologies more real. We're a mess, but we're ours, and that's enough for now. The mug's chip catches the light, a reminder of what we've survived, what we're building. The letter's in the drawer, but its truth is in us, stitching us together, scar by scar. This story's raw, messy, and ours. The truth cut deep, but it's healing us one painful step at a time. If it hit you, smash that like button. Share your scars in the comments. I'm listening always. Subscribe and ring the bell because this isn't the end. It's where we begin. We were not fixed, but we're fighting, and I want you with me for every step. The kitchen's brighter now, the mug's still here, and so are we. Let's keep going together, because the truth is worth every bruise it leaves.